Hello Internet, I'm Pastor Theo and welcome to Faith Talk, the only channel that promotes faith while simultaneously criticizing all of its institutions. Wait, is that what we're doing here? Guys, come on. Sorry folks, they didn't tell me. Well, this could be an awkward subject. When you think about living a good life, or what it means to be moral, you're probably also asking, what does religion have to do with that? I mean, beyond that of critical philosophers who have argued on the subject for centuries, society has largely dubbed the crown of ultimate authority on morality to go to modern religion. Now, we aren't here to question the type of belief system you've chosen. That'll be a super fun, uplifting topic for another time. However, it is a curiosity that we as a society should view religious principles as objectively the best source of human behavior. Do me a favor, ask any one of your friends, where does the source of morality in society come from? I'll wait. If you're like most people, you found that most find that morality comes from religion. If you found someone who says something like, morality is an illusion and right and wrong is simply a relative matter of the mind perceiving its own nothingness, then my friend, you found a communist or an existentialist. In either case, run before the void takes you, or the imperialists claim you. Now let's ask ourselves, what is the most basic primary goal of religion? Tricky subject, because there are literally thousands of religions across the globe, from Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Scientology, not to mention the various sects of Islam, the literally thousands of different Christian organizations. Heck, even the Church of the Giant Spaghetti Monster is a thing. And they all believe something a little bit different from each other. I mean, if not, they would all be the same religion. Why are there so many again? Oh, we're not doing that? Not this time? So let's take the top 3 religions by population and see what they have in common. At the top of the list is Christianity with 2.2 billion. Go Jesus! Right next to that is Islam with 1.6 billion, and Hinduism under that with 1 billion members. Are these right? Can we fact check this? How is Islam trailing Jesus lovers by only 500 million? Oh, you can't win them all. Oh, but by the way, if you're one of those out there cheering for Christianity leading the pack, don't bother. That only accounts for about 31% of the world's population, which means your religion isn't that popular or significant with the vast majority of the planet. Which brings me back to the odd reason that society still finds religion to be the best source of moral truth. You see, even though these 3 religions make up a large chunk of the world's 7+ billion inhabitants, their individual belief systems are so wildly fragmented from each other that their values often end up in conflict. Still, regardless of their differences, they, much like all the other religions, not specifically mentioned here, agree there is an afterlife, that you are only temporarily confined to the flesh you're in, and there are specific things that must be done while on earth in order to have the best of life after this one. Okay, so what does any of that have to do with morals or being a better person? Well, considering that many of you out there viewing this video right now are probably Christian, how can I put this? It doesn't. I'm going to let that sink in. It's true. When you think about it, religion's primary claim is to provide you with the right methodology to achieve the best afterlife. No matter what religion you belong to, it never promised anything more or less. Sure, some faiths promote actions that we might see as good and virtuous, even moral. So, can religion make you a better person? Sure, maybe. If you're already thinking about how to be a better person. The point is, religion never claimed to be an authority on anything other than getting you to the next life. Anything it does beyond that is secondary. So its goodness is really good relative to itself and its own values. The validity of those values and how those values sometimes conflict with the values dictated by other faith systems who claim to have it on divine authority, their values are absolutely correct, is a topic for another time. He mused, knowing everyone suddenly understood perfectly the implications of his words, except he didn't, because he knows better, and reads the comments sometimes when he isn't already sad from life experience. Look, isn't it presumptuous to assume that an organization believed to have divine guidance for the welfare of your soul should also therefore be acknowledged as having the key to moral judgment in this world? Well, you might think so. But let's not forget, historically, religion is terrible at being moral. Religion in every age has been responsible for some of the most immoral behavior ever conceived. And every religion in history has been known to accept practices that, by today's standards, would be horrific. Even my own. Wait, who put that in there? You know, I think I know where this is going. Do we really need to look at some examples? Yeah, okay, they're saying yes. The Roman Catholics, the only true Christian organization at the time, was responsible for the Crusades, which claimed around 3 million lives between 1095 AD and 1453 AD. The Israelites, under the command of God, marched armies into the cities of neighboring communities and slaughtered all the inhabitants, leaving nothing alive, taking their lands and possessions for themselves as an inheritance. That's kind of a relative slap in the face to the commandment to not kill or steal, isn't it? Isn't it? On the other hand, the prophets of ancient times often had multiple wives and concubines, giving a real slap in the face to the commandment to not fornicate or commit adultery, at least as we understand the commandment today. Abraham had his wife plus her handmaiden, Jacob had 2 wives plus each of their handmaidens, Lot had his wife plus his 2 daughters, and King Solomon had a harem of 1,000 concubines, to name a few, and for which none were ever punished by divine authority for their indulgence. You know, when compared to today's standards, I can't help but feel like somebody's wrong here. The church at one point in its early history came up with the brilliant idea of selling indulgences to its members, simultaneously becoming more rich and powerful than the king, while encouraging people to live sinful, lustful, adulterous, murderous lives. Some Islamic followers believe that it is good and right to slaughter anyone who doesn't believe as they do, creating a real problem for those who do believe as they do, but slightly differently. I mean, come on. How do you come up with so many different religions anyway when you're all reading the same book? Oh, right. Christianity has produced tens of thousands different denominational distinctions, with a few hundred just in the United States. This has caused a great deal of tension throughout the nation and the world. Its byproducts have been racism, family dysfunction, caused wars and murders, and conflicts in communities since the first dissensions from the Catholic Church hundreds of years ago. Even today, some families go so far as to disown members who choose to believe slightly different versions of Christianity than they do. And further, as the world becomes less strict about traditional Christian practices, and even becomes less Christian-oriented, we might find a cultural shift toward alternative faith systems. This may be significant because, historically, many pagan faiths have believed in extremely loose sexual practices, such as the Roman Empire, which boasts some of the most promiscuous behavior ever conceived, often tied to some kind of religious ideal. But of course, let's not forget these dishonorable mentions. The Inquisition, Islamic Jihad, 9/11, the Ku Klux Klan, the Armenian Genocide, the Muslim conquests, the Israeli-Palestinian occupation and genocide, American settlers, ethnic cleansing of native tribes, the 30 Years' War, the French religious wars, ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Hindus, Mayan, Incan, and Aztec human sacrifices, the biblical endorsement to mistreat homosexuals, the witch trials, and human sacrifices in Buddhist Burma. Whew! Well, congratulations if you're still with us. Dang it, religion, you had one job, one job! So all religions have a history of immoral practice. At least they can be seen as immoral depending on whose perspective you're taking. We all want to believe that there is an objective truth of right and wrong, and we hope that heaven will offer us good guidance. After all, we're human, and we tend to get it wrong. A lot. But it can become hard to discern objective truth when even God's commands become relative. Of course, this happens mostly when people arbitrarily follow the dictates of religious leaders and let them think for us, regardless of validity or scriptural bias. After all, what could go wrong with handing over the security of your eternal soul to another human being, so long as he or she has studied the subject enough? But I want to be clear here. I'm not actually talking about the doctrines of any particular faith. When I say religion, I'm talking exclusively about the culture of a religious organization, the people, traditions, and interpretations surrounding the doctrine. But let's be objective here. It's not like the Puritans didn't mean well, or that there isn't some value in jihad, at least as it's defined, or that self-imposed isolation, mutilation, introspection, denial of the self, and permanent self-imposed abstinence doesn't have a place, right? When you get right down to it, religion of any kind isn't an institution based on moral reasoning, at least not in the broad sense. Religious morals are self-evidently true for their own purpose, independent of everyone else, and specific to each religion's ideals. And that's the point. Religion simply teaches a method for readying you for the next life. And if you like the method it provides, then great. There are lots of good reasons to get involved with a religious group. It can provide a sense of purpose and community in your life. It can offer perspective and ideas about the nature of the world and your place in it. Religion and community around it can help you through difficult times and assist you when you're in need. And it just might even help prepare you for the life to come. But it won't necessarily make you a better person in this life. Your objective truth is really only meaningful to you and in the context of your religion of choice. Remember that the next time you hold hostage that friend, coworker, or relative until they convert. And finally, we can't say that those believers of the past were any less dedicated to their faith than us today, only because now we look back and see their actions as sinful mistakes. We are all operating on the knowledge we've been given. A faithful person is merely an individual who embraces the truth they have and acts accordingly. Wait a second, what's that, Sally? You say that can actually make things worse. As it turns out, organized religion, or organized anything for that matter, can be bad for you and for society. Whoa, hey, oh, let me explain before you start throwing Bibles. Look, when a group organizes, especially around a set of beliefs or traditions, that group will naturally set itself apart from the rest of society. The separation and distinction is essential to immersing yourself in the methods prescribed for achieving whatever it is you're trying to achieve spiritually. So naturally, that organization has rules and policies that are formed to reflect the group's ideals and end goals, but at the same time limit a person's activities, often even more so than the original doctrines would indicate. This is done in seeing that all members can achieve the same heavenly goal. But what if your organization holds values that you aren't able to live up to? For instance, let's say you belong to a church that heavily favors families and sees the family unit as the most important aspect of living. But you're single and have few prospects. You're discouraged from dating outside of the church because it's not likely that you'll find a person who will believe the same as you do, and they may even corrupt you. So you remain loyal and lonely, a member of the group, but always an outsider. The same goes for single parents. In some faiths, divorce is looked down on heavily, and if you had a child out of wedlock, even worse. No matter who you are now, or how faithful you are to the ideals of your religion, you are always marked by those past decisions. Remember, it's not about moral behavior. Other members may even think it is the moral and safe thing to do to protect themselves by distancing themselves or ignoring such a member as yourself. This is because religious groups often forget the ideals they live for and replace them with the rules and policies needed to maintain their cultural distinction. Remember that it was similar behavior that caused Jesus to criticize the Pharisees and scribes of his time. And under the law of Moses, it was permissible that the Israelites stone their members to death for numerous and sometimes minor infractions of their religious code. Of course, that was the code of the time and stands in stark contrast to Christian dictates of prayer and repentance held today. So what's a little discomfort around members of your congregation anyway? At least you're not being stoned. Yay, upgrade! It's actually a fairly commonly held notion amongst theologians that religion by itself, with focuses on cultural identity that build up the ego, that emphasize practices more than ideals higher than the self, can make you a worse kind of person than had you never known religion to begin with. Tolerance just isn't something that's heavily emphasized by most religious groups, even if it is preached. For many groups, people who hold talents outside of religion's emphasized preferences, or who have different sexual preferences, who require certain medications or treatments or prescriptions to continue living a normal functional life, or who divorce or are single, or who have any sort of history outside of the faith, can feel isolated, lonely, hurt, and less worthy. Of course, these feelings are counterproductive to the ideals that most faiths preach about preparing for the life to come. And it doesn't help when the culture of a faith group starts confusing policy with doctrine. On the other hand, it's even worse when a religion uses fear tactics to keep membership in line. You see, fear tactics have been used by every sort of group in history, But I think religion really takes the cake on this one. The idea that anything you do can be criticized by a preacher, by another sect, or by members of your own congregation, and possibly subject you to being ostracized by other members, or condemned by the group, most likely, probably, definitely leads to a certain amount of anxiety. More than that, the stress of trying to live up to the group's standards of living and lifestyle likely causes members to go to extreme lengths to achieve those ideals, even to the point of compromising themselves and their own good sense, believing that it is more important to live the standards and achieve the ideal than to protect themselves with basic security and find happiness with what they have. And when you're too busy worrying about what your pastor thinks is right for you, and you're depressed because you don't feel like you're included, and you're sad to the point of self-deprecation because you feel like you'll never be worthy enough, you may find it a difficult task of really being the good and moral person you likely already are inside. You know, I take it back. This wasn't so bad. Not a bad start to the channel, don't you think? So in some cases, religion can actually make you a worse person? You know, I guess that's probably true. I think we've all known a few self-righteous jackasses in our day. Garrett. So is this how every episode is going to go?